Hey there, this is Matt with PokerStop.com. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through the rules of Texas Hold'em poker. And to do that, we're actually going to be walking through an actual hand in the Universal Replayer. So the rules of Texas Hold'em actually seem complex if you've never played the game before, but it's actually pretty straightforward. It's actually not that bad. It's just more or less complex because it's over several betting rounds as opposed to just maybe one or two. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get started here and just walk you through all the steps, and I'll just pause when I need to kind of highlight maybe a certain rule or action. So what we have here are blinds of 10 and 20, and the first person to post the blinds is the small blind, which sits to the immediate left of wherever the dealer button is placed. The dealer button will move around the table after each hand is completed, so every player at the table will have to pay the blinds at one point or another. So with blinds of 10 and 20, the small blind will pay the 10 chip blind, and the big blind will have to post 20 chips for the big blind. Now all the betting from here on out will have to be in at least a minimum of 2 times the big blind, and then of course in No Limit Hold'em players can bet their entire stack at any time. So the first player to act pre-flop, which is before seeing the first 3 community cards, is going to be the player to the immediate left of the big blind. This player is also known as under the gun. So in this case he folds. Now we have a player who makes a 60 chip raise, which is acceptable. An acceptable bet would be a minimum of 40 chips, and then of course he can bet his entire stack. So three times the big blind is perfectly acceptable. His other option would also be he could call for 20 chips, or he can fold. Now all players left to act either can fold, call the 60 chips, or they could also raise. And if they were to raise, it would have to be at least a minimum of 2 times the size of this player's raise, or 120 chips. So we have players folding. The player on the button decides to call. And now the big blind can call for another 40 chips. Well, excuse me, the small blind could have done the same. He could call for an extra 50 chips, or he could fold, or he could raise. And the big blind can do the same. 40 chips, he could raise to 120 or higher, or he can fold. And he decides to fold. So that's the pre-flop action. So now we're going to see the flop, which is the first 3 community cards of 5 total. Now the first player to act on the flop is going to be the first player to the left of the dealer button. So in this case, Mito 1212 is the first player to act. His choices here are to check or bet. He could fold too, but that doesn't really make any sense. Online, you can fold, but it just doesn't make any sense. It makes more sense to check. So he goes ahead and bets. Now the option for Sam Killer 33 is he can call, he can fold, or he can raise. And again, he would have to raise at least twice the size of Mito 1212's raise, so a minimum of 280 chips. So he decides just to call. Now the turn is the 4th community card, and the action is basically the same as the flop. The first player that's still involved in the hand to the left of the dealer button is the first to act. So in the case of 2 players, Mito 1212 is the first player, and he checks, and Sam Killer 33 bets. So now Mito 1212's option again is to fold, call, or raise, and a minimum raise here would be 400 chips. He just calls, and then we see a river. At this point, action is going to be the same as far as betting, so Mito 1212 is the first player to act, and he checks, and Sam Killer 33 checks behind as well. Now here, since they both check behind, the first player to show would be the first player to the left of the dealer button. So it would be Mito 1212. Now, in the case of assuming if there was any action, any betting action, the player who acted would be the first player to show. So, for example, here, assuming, so we see a river. Let's say Mito 1212 checks, and Sam Killer 33 decides to bet. If Mito 1212 decides to call, Sam Killer will have to show his cards first. And Mito 1212, of course, can just muck his hand. And in this case, in Texas Hold'em poker, the normal poker hand rules apply. So high hand wins here. Best hand wins. So that's basically the rules of Texas Hold'em poker in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it once more, just really fast. And I also wanted to highlight something else here in the beginning as well. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through to the beginning. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out is in many games, tournaments, sit and goes, even in a lot of cash games, antes are used, and these antes are basically small bets placed by all the players of the table who wish to be dealt into the hand. It's just basically a way to kind of beef up the pot before you get started. Just a way to encourage action. So if there was antes, for example, in this game, there might be antes at like blinds of 200, 400, and the blinds might be, or the antes might be, 20 chips. Every single player, including the blinds, would have to place an ante of 20 chips before they were dealt a hand. So with 9 players, you would see a pot of 180 plus the blinds 200, so you would see about 480 chips before the cards were dealt. So as played, pre-flop, players have the option to call, raise, or fold. Action starts with the player under the gun, and it moves itself clockwise around the table until everyone has acted. So we have a player who raised, player who called. We see a flop. The first player to the left of the dealer button is the person to act first. Again, the options are to check, call, or fold, or raise, depending on the action in front of you. Then we see the turn, which is the 4th community card. And again, the action is the same as the flop, so depending on the action in front of you, you have the option to check, call, raise, or fold. And the river, the betting action is the same. The first player to the left of the dealer button acts. The options are to check, call, raise, or fold. And the first player to show their cards with no action is the first player to the left of the dealer button. Otherwise, it's the player who raised first, or who's the player who's shown the most initiative. So if a player raised and a player re-raised, it'd be the player who re-raised who would have to show. So that's all there is to it, to Texas Hold'em poker. Once again, these rules are actually really simple to learn, and once you learn these, it makes other games like Stud and Omaha a little bit easier to learn. So if you have any other questions, feel free to stop by PokerStop.com, where we have the rules and other poker strategy available for you. And thanks for watching.